The medical station Harmony floated silently in the dark space between 3 star systems. Its white walls glowed with soft blue light, and hundreds of beings from different worlds worked inside its corridors. Nurse Kira moved through the hallways on her 6 crystal legs, each step making tiny musical sounds on the metal floor. Her transparent body sparkled with nervous energy as she carried her medical supplies toward the human wing. Kira had worked at Harmony Station for 5 years, but she had never treated a human before. The Veltari people were known across the galaxy for their gentle healing touch and their ability to sense pain in other beings. Their crystal bodies could channel healing energy, and their small, precise hands were perfect for the delicate work that most alien species needed. But humans were different, and that scared her. She had heard stories about humans from other nurses. They said humans were tough like metal, that they could survive injuries that would kill most other species. Some said humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Others claimed they were surprisingly kind but very strange in their ways. Kira did not know what to believe. As she reached the human medical bay, Dr. Vale called her over. The station's chief medical officer was a Zeltharian with 12 purple tentacles and 3 large eyes that could see in many different types of light. Vale had been working with different species for 30 years and knew more about alien biology than anyone else on the station. "Kira, we have our first human patient coming in," Vale said, his voice making bubbling sounds through his water-filled breathing apparatus. A mining engineer named Tom was injured in an accident on the asteroid belt. His ship is docking now. Kira's crystal body dimmed with worry. She had studied human anatomy in school, but only from books and computer files. She knew they had red blood instead of the blue or green blood of most species, and that they had only 1 heart instead of 2 or 3. But seeing pictures was very different from treating a real living human. "What kind of injuries does he have?" she asked, checking her medical kit. Inside were the standard tools that worked for 90% of all known species. Nanohealers that could repair tissue at the cellular level, microscanners that could see inside bodies without cutting, and gentle energy probes that could numb pain and stop bleeding. "The report says he has broken bones in his arm and deep cuts from metal debris," Vale replied. "Nothing that should be too difficult for our equipment." 20 minutes later, the docking alarm sounded, and Kira heard heavy footsteps coming down the corridor. She had expected this, since humans were much larger than most other species, but she was still surprised when Tom walked through the medical bay doors. He was huge. Most aliens that came to Harmony were her size or smaller, delicate beings with thin bones and soft skin. But Tom stood twice her height, with broad shoulders and thick arms. His skin was tan from working under different suns, and his brown hair was messy from his long space journey. Blood stained his work uniform, and his left arm hung at an odd angle. What surprised Kira most was his face. Despite being in obvious pain, Tom smiled at her when he walked in. His eyes were kind, not dangerous like some of the stories suggested. "Hello there," Tom said, his voice much deeper than any voice she had heard before. "You must be my nurse." "I'm Tom." Kira's translator device quickly changed his words into her language, but she could still hear the warmth in his tone. She had expected humans to be cold and mechanical, but Tom seemed genuinely friendly. "I am Nurse Kira," she replied, her crystal body brightening slightly with relief. "Please sit on the examination table so I can look at your injuries." Tom carefully climbed onto the table, which creaked under his weight. Most alien furniture was not built for human size and mass. As he settled down, Kira could see his injuries more clearly. His left arm was definitely broken, with the bone bent at an unnatural angle. Deep cuts ran along his shoulder and chest where metal pieces had torn through his uniform. She activated her medical scanner and held it over his arm. The device hummed softly and projected a blue hologram showing the inside of his limb. What she saw made her pause in confusion. The human's bones were incredibly thick and dense, much more solid than anything she had seen before. His muscles were like cables of steel, and his blood vessels were large and numerous. Even his skin was thick and tough. Her scanner, which could easily penetrate the bodies of most species, was having trouble getting clear images through his dense tissue. "Is everything all right?" Tom asked, noticing her hesitation. "Your body is very different from what I expected," Kira admitted. "Our scanners are designed for beings with lighter bone structure." Tom chuckled, which sent vibrations through the examination table. "Yeah, we humans are built pretty solid. We come from a heavy world with tough conditions. Had to adapt or die, you know. Kira reached for her nano-healers, tiny devices that could enter wounds and repair damage from the inside. But as she tried to apply them to Tom's cuts, she realized they were far too small. The healing units that could easily close wounds on other species barely made any difference on his thick skin. She tried her microsurgical tools next, but they seemed like toys compared to the size of his injuries. The bone setters that could realign fractures in most aliens could not even grip his dense bones properly. Tom watched her struggle with growing concern. He could see the frustration building in her crystal body, which was flickering between different colors as her emotions changed. "Nurse Kira," he said gently, "I think there might be a problem with your equipment." "I do not understand," she replied, her voice tight with stress. "These tools work on every other species." "But I'm not every other species," Tom said with a patient smile. "I'm human. We're built different." Tom watched as Kira tried different medical tools from her kit, each one failing to work properly on his human body. Her crystal form was now flashing red and orange, colors that his universal translator told him meant frustration and confusion. He felt bad for the small nurse who was clearly doing her best to help him. "Wait," Tom said, reaching carefully toward his equipment bag with his good arm. "I might have something that can help." Kira stepped back as Tom pulled out a large metal case from his personal belongings. The case was bigger than her entire medical kit, and when he opened it, she gasped at what she saw inside. The tools looked like weapons to her eyes. There were metal instruments that seemed designed for cutting and drilling, devices with sharp edges and heavy handles. One tool looked like a small saw, another like a hammer. There were thick needles as long as her fingers and metal rods that could have been used to break rocks. "What are those?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Human medical tools," Tom replied calmly, though he could see the fear in her transparent features. "Every human who works in space carries a basic medical kit. We learned the hard way that alien medical equipment usually doesn't work on us." Kira stared at the contents of the case. The smallest instrument in Tom's kit was larger than the biggest tool in hers. Everything looked crude and primitive compared to the elegant nanotechnology she was used to working with. "These look so violent," she said, backing away from the case. Tom's expression became serious. "I know they look scary to you, but they're not violent. They're just built for human bodies. Look at me compared to you, Kira. I'm 3 times your size and probably 10 times heavier. My bones are like stone compared to yours, and my skin is thick like leather. Your gentle tools can't get through all that." He pointed to a large needle. "This looks huge and frightening to you, but it's the right size to get through human skin and reach our blood vessels. Your tiny needles would bend or break trying to penetrate our hide." Kira moved closer again, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. She picked up what looked like a small metal bar with a rough surface. "What is this one for?" she asked. "That's for scraping away dead tissue from wounds," Tom explained. "Human skin grows back fast, but sometimes damaged parts need to be removed first. Your energy tools can't grip our thick skin properly, so we use mechanical tools instead." She set it down and pointed to the saw-like instrument. "And this?" "For cutting through bone when we need to reset fractures," Tom said. "Human bones are so dense that your sonic cutters can't get through them. We have to use old-fashioned cutting tools." Kira's crystal body shifted to blue and green, which meant she was thinking hard and beginning to understand. She had spent years learning that the most advanced medical technology was always the smallest and most precise. The idea that bigger and simpler tools might actually be better was completely new to her. "But how do you control them?" she asked. "These tools are so large and crude. How do you do precise work?" Tom smiled. "That's the thing about humans. We've been using tools like these for thousands of years. Our hands are strong and steady, and we've learned to be precise with them. Watch." Despite his broken arm, Tom carefully picked up a large needle with his good hand. His thick fingers, which had looked clumsy to Kira, held the tool with surprising delicacy. He demonstrated how human doctors were trained to make exact movements even with large instruments. "It's not the size of the tool that matters," he explained. "It's the skill of the person using it." Kira was beginning to see the logic behind human medical equipment, but she was still nervous about using such large instruments. Her people had always healed with gentle energy and tiny tools that could work at the cellular level. "I do not know how to use these," she admitted. "I was trained on precision equipment." Tom nodded understandingly. "I can teach you the basics for treating my injuries. Human medical techniques are actually pretty simple once you understand them. We can't use fancy nanotechnology like other species, so we developed straightforward methods that work reliably." He guided her through the process step by step. First, he showed her how to clean wounds with antiseptic solutions that were much stronger than anything she had used before. Human immune systems were powerful, but they needed help fighting off the tough bacteria that lived on their home worlds. Next, he taught her about sutures, thick threads used to sew cuts closed. Kira's people could heal small wounds with energy, but humans needed physical stitching to hold their thick skin together while it healed naturally. "The key is to make each stitch the same size and distance apart," Tom explained as Kira practiced on a piece of synthetic skin from his kit. "Humans heal better when everything is lined up properly." For his broken bone, Tom showed her how to use metal rods to hold the pieces in the right position. It was completely different from the energy fields that other species used to encourage bone regrowth. Human medicine was about providing physical support while the body did its own healing work. As they worked together, Kira began to appreciate the cleverness behind human medical tools. They might look primitive, but they were designed to work in any conditions, with any power source, and they never broke down like complex electronic equipment. "Your people must be very tough," she said as she carefully applied a bandage to his shoulder. "We had to be," Tom replied. "Our home world isn't a gentle place like most inhabited planets. High gravity, dangerous weather, predators, diseases. We learned to be strong, and we learned to fix ourselves when we got hurt." Kira finished treating his cuts and began working on setting his broken arm. The process was more physical than anything she had done before, requiring strength to position the bones correctly. But Tom guided her through each step, and she found that her crystal hands were actually well suited for gripping the human tools once she learned how to use them properly. After Kira finished treating Tom's injuries, she cleaned the human medical tools and packed them back into his case. Her crystal body now glowed with soft white light, showing that she felt calm and satisfied with her work. Tom's arm was properly set and his cuts were cleanly stitched, though the whole process had taken much longer than treating most other species would have. Dr. Vale entered the medical bay just as Kira was finishing her notes. His 3 large eyes looked Tom over carefully, checking the quality of the medical work. "Excellent treatment, Nurse Kira," Vale said, his tentacles waving in approval. "Though I notice you used very different techniques than usual." "The patient taught me to use human medical tools," Kira explained. "Our standard equipment was not effective on his body." Vale's center I focused on Tom's medical case with great interest. As chief medical officer, he had treated a few humans before, but he had never taken the time to really study their medical methods. "May I examine these tools?" Vale asked Tom politely. "Of course, Doctor," Tom replied. "I'd be happy to explain how they work." Vale's tentacles carefully lifted each instrument, studying them with the thoroughness of a scientist. His water-filled breathing apparatus bubbled more rapidly as he became excited by what he was seeing. "Fascinating," Vale murmured. "These designs are completely different from anything we use, but I can see the logic behind them." He held up a large surgical clamp that could grip thick human tissue. "This is much more robust than our energy grippers. It would never break or lose power." "Exactly," Tom said. "Human tools are built to work under the worst conditions. If we're injured on a planet with no power, or in a damaged spaceship, or during a disaster, we need tools that will always function." Vale set down the clamp and picked up a manual drill used for certain bone procedures. "And this requires no external power source at all. Very practical." Kira watched as the two of them discussed human medical philosophy. She was learning that humans approached medicine very differently than most other species. While aliens relied on advanced technology and delicate precision, humans used simpler tools and brute force methods that were surprisingly effective. "Dr. Vale," she said, "why do humans need such different medical care? Is it just because they are larger?" Vale's 3 eyes turned to look at her, and his tentacles gestured for her to sit down. He loved teaching young medical staff about the different species they might encounter. "Size is part of it, but not the whole story," Vale explained. Humans come from what we call a Class M death world. Most intelligent species evolve on gentle planets with light gravity and stable conditions. But Earth is different. He activated a holographic projector and showed them an image of Earth floating in space. To Kira, it looked beautiful with its blue oceans and white clouds, but Vale pointed out details that told a different story. Earth has very high gravity compared to most worlds, Vale continued. It also has extreme weather, dangerous radiation from its sun, and thousands of deadly diseases and predators. Most species would die quickly on such a world, but humans evolved to survive there. The hologram changed to show cross-sections of different alien bodies compared to human anatomy. Kira could see immediately how different Tom's body was from her own crystal structure or Vale's soft, tentacled form. Human bones are incredibly dense to support their weight in high gravity, Vale explained. Their muscles are like cables of steel, and their skin is thick enough to resist cuts and burns. They have powerful immune systems to fight off the deadly diseases of their home world, and their hearts pump with tremendous force to move blood through their heavy bodies. Kira studied the images with new understanding. So their medical tools have to be strong enough to work on bodies built for survival. Exactly, Vale said. What looks primitive to us is actually perfectly adapted engineering. Human medical tools work reliably because they have to. On their world, a broken tool could mean death. Tom nodded agreement. My grandfather was a military medic. He used to say that the best medical tool is the one that works when everything else has failed. Vale continued the lesson by showing them how different species had developed different medical approaches based on their home environments. The crystalline Veltari, like Kira, used energy healing because their bodies were natural conductors. The gaseous Nephrians used chemical treatments because their bodies were made of living gas. The insectoid Zephirites used biomechanical implants because their bodies were partially mechanical already. But humans developed what we call mechanical medicine, Vale explained. They use physical tools to manually repair their bodies, rather than relying on energy or chemicals or biological processes. Kira was fascinated by this information. Is mechanical medicine better than our methods? Not better, Vale said thoughtfully. Just different. Each approach works best for the species that developed it. But there is something to be said for the reliability of human methods. He told them about a medical emergency he had responded to years earlier, when a transport ship carrying multiple species had crashed on a remote planet. The sophisticated alien medical equipment had been damaged in the crash, leaving the survivors with only basic human medical supplies. The human medic on board was able to treat injuries in 5 different species using nothing but human tools and techniques, Vale recalled. He saved lives that would have been lost if we had relied only on our advanced equipment. Tom smiled at this story. We have a saying, when all else fails, use a bigger hammer. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. Vale's tentacles waved in what Kira recognized as laughter. I have heard this human saying before. It seems to apply to many areas of human technology, not just medicine. As they talked, other medical staff began gathering around to listen. Word had spread through the station that a human patient was being treated with fascinating new medical techniques. Nurses and doctors from 6 different species crowded into the medical bay to see Tom's tools and hear about human medicine. A young Arcturian doctor named Zip held up one of Tom's surgical knives. His 4 arms trembled as he tried to imagine using such a large, heavy instrument. How do you control something this big? He asked. Tom demonstrated the proper grip and motion, showing how human hands were naturally suited for using substantial tools. It's all about leverage and control. Our hands evolved to use tools, so we're naturally good at it. A moth-like Lunarian nurse named Flutter touched the human suture thread with one delicate wing. This seems so rough compared to our healing weaves. But it's stronger, Tom pointed out. Your healing weaves are beautiful and precise, but they would dissolve in human body chemistry. Our sutures are designed to hold until our thick skin can heal properly. 3 days after Tom's treatment, Kira was working the night shift when alarm bells began ringing throughout Harmony Station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and the emergency announcement system crackled to life in dozens of alien languages. All medical staff report to emergency stations immediately, came Dr. Vale's urgent voice. We have a station-wide crisis. Kira dropped her routine paperwork and rushed toward the main medical bay, her crystal legs clicking rapidly on the floor. Other medical staff were running from all directions, their faces showing fear and confusion. She could feel the station shaking slightly, which was never supposed to happen aboard Harmony. When she reached the central medical area, she found chaos. Dr. Vale was coordinating multiple teams while his tentacles worked on several different computer systems at once. Medical staff were preparing equipment and converting empty rooms into emergency treatment areas. "What is happening?" Kira asked as she joined the group around Vale. "Gravity generator failure in Section 7, Vale explained quickly. "The backup systems are malfunctioning, creating gravity fluctuations throughout that entire area. We have crushing injuries, decompression damage, and structural failures." Kira's crystal body flashed with alarm colors. Gravity generators were the most important systems on any space station. Without properly controlled gravity, the artificial environment that kept hundreds of different species alive would collapse. "How many injured?" she asked. "At least 40 beings from 12 different species," Vale replied grimly. "And the numbers are still climbing. The rescue teams are having trouble getting to some areas because the gravity keeps changing." The first wave of injured began arriving within minutes. Kira watched in horror as rescue workers carried in beings who had been crushed by suddenly increased gravity or torn apart by sudden weightlessness. She had never seen injuries this severe on multiple species at once. The medical staff immediately began treating patients with their standard equipment, but Kira quickly noticed problems. The delicate alien medical tools were struggling under the harsh conditions. Several nano-healers had already malfunctioned due to the electromagnetic interference from the gravity fluctuations. Energy-based surgical tools were losing power as the station systems strained to maintain basic life support. A Veltari patient like herself was brought in with multiple crystal fractures throughout her body. The normal crystal repair tools should have been able to fix her easily, but they kept shutting down due to power fluctuations. Kira watched helplessly as her fellow crystal being lay on the table, her inner light flickering weakly. Nearby, Dr. Zip was trying to treat a massive granite being whose rock-like body had been cracked by the gravity changes. The ultrasonic bone welders that should have sealed the cracks were barely making any progress. The alien tools were too small and precise to work effectively on such massive injuries. All around the medical bay, similar scenes were playing out. The sophisticated alien medical equipment that worked so well under normal conditions was failing when faced with extreme circumstances. Patients were suffering while their doctors struggled with unreliable tools. Kira remembered Tom, who was supposed to be resting in the human quarters while his arm healed. She wondered if he was safe, but there was no time to check on him with so many critical patients arriving. Then she heard heavy footsteps in the corridor, and Tom appeared in the medical bay doorway. His injured arm was still in a sling, but he was carrying his large medical case in his other hand. Behind him came 6 other humans who had been working or living on the station. "Dr. Vale," Tom called out, "we're here to help." Vale looked up from a patient he was trying to stabilize. "Tom, you should be resting. And the other humans should stay in the safe areas until we can restore gravity control." "With respect, Doctor, I don't think you have time to wait," Tom replied. "Your equipment is failing, but our tools don't rely on the station's power systems." Tom opened his medical case and began pulling out the large, sturdy instruments that had seemed so frightening to Kira just days before. The other humans opened similar cases, revealing sets of mechanical tools that looked crude compared to the delicate alien equipment, but were clearly built to function under any conditions. "These tools will work even if the power goes out completely," Tom explained. "And they're strong enough to handle severe trauma that your precision equipment can't manage." Kira watched as Tom approached the injured granite being that Dr. Zip was struggling to treat. The massive alien's rock-like skin was cracked in several places, and the ultrasonic welders were making no progress. "May I try?" Tom asked politely. Dr. Zip stepped back in frustration. "The cracks are too deep and wide for our equipment." Tom selected a large chisel and hammer from his kit. To Kira, it looked like he was about to attack the patient, but she forced herself to watch and learn. Tom carefully positioned the chisel along one of the cracks and struck it with controlled precision. Instead of widening the crack, his technique actually aligned the broken pieces of rock skin properly. He then pulled out a tube of what looked like liquid cement. "Human bone cement," he explained to the amazed Dr. Zip. "We use it to fill gaps in severe fractures." As Tom worked, other humans began treating patients throughout the medical bay. Their tools were loud and seemed violent compared to the silent energy-based alien equipment, but they were getting results. A human named Lisa was successfully treating the injured Veltari with a mechanical crystal setter that could grip and align fractured crystal segments. Another human called Mike was using heavy-duty sutures to close massive tears in a wounded Gazarian's membrane body. Kira realized that what she was witnessing was exactly what Dr. Vale had described earlier: human mechanical medicine working when advanced technology failed. The gravity fluctuations and power problems that were crippling the alien equipment had no effect on the simple, sturdy human tools. She picked up some of Tom's supplies and approached a patient that other nurses had been unable to treat. It was a small Zephyrite whose biomechanical components had been damaged by the gravity changes. The alien repair tools couldn't interface with the damaged systems, but Kira remembered Tom's lessons about using physical tools to provide support while natural healing occurred. Working carefully with human surgical clamps and sutures, she was able to hold the Zephyrite's damaged components in proper position. It wasn't as elegant as biomechanical repair, but it worked. The patient stabilized and began showing signs of recovery. Around her, other alien medical staff were beginning to use human tools as well. Dr. Zip was learning to use the bone cement on other granite patients. Nurse Flutter was discovering that human bandages could seal wounds that energy treatments couldn't close under the harsh conditions. The medical bay filled with the sounds of manual tools working, hammering, cutting, drilling, but also with the sounds of patients recovering. The crude human methods were saving lives that the sophisticated alien technology couldn't help. Two weeks after the gravity generator crisis, Harmony Station had returned to normal operations. The damaged sections were repaired, and the injured patients were all recovering well. But something important had changed in the medical bay, and everyone could see it. Where once there had been only delicate alien medical equipment, now there were also sturdy human tools integrated into every treatment station. The contrast was striking: tiny nano-healers sitting next to heavy surgical hammers, elegant energy probes beside robust mechanical clamps. Kira stood in the center of the main medical bay, teaching a class of alien medical staff how to use human instruments. Her crystal body glowed with confidence as she demonstrated the proper technique for using human bone setters on different species. "Remember," she told the mixed group of nurses and doctors, "these tools are not about being gentle. They are about being effective. Sometimes the best way to help a patient is to use enough force to do the job properly." Dr. Zip, the Arcturian who had once trembled while holding a human surgical knife, was now expertly using human cement to repair a crack in a granite patient's rocky skin. His forearms moved with practiced precision as he applied the thick, gray substance that looked nothing like the elegant crystal repair gels he was used to. "The human methods work so much better for severe injuries," he told his patient. "Your crack will be stronger than before once this cement sets." Nearby, Nurse Flutter was using human sutures to close a complex wound on a Lunarian like herself. The thick thread looked crude against her delicate moth-wing membrane, but it was holding the tissue together in a way that energy healing simply couldn't match. Tom watched the training session from a nearby chair, his arm now fully healed and back to normal strength. He was amazed at how quickly the alien medical staff had adapted to human techniques. What had once seemed impossible to them was now routine. "You've created quite a revolution here," Dr. Vale said, approaching Tom with his usual bubbling speech pattern. "Half the medical staff now prefer using human tools for serious trauma cases." "I never expected anything like this," Tom admitted. "When I first came here injured, I was just trying to get treated. I had no idea it would change how medicine works on this station." Vale's three eyes focused on Kira as she helped a young Nephrian nurse learn to use human surgical clamps. "Nurse Kira has become our best teacher of human medical techniques. She understands both approaches and can explain why each method works best in different situations." It was true. Kira had spent every free moment studying human medicine and practicing with their tools. She had discovered that her crystal hands were actually perfect for gripping human instruments, and her natural ability to sense pain in other beings helped her know exactly how much force to apply. "The most important thing I learned," Kira said to her students, "is that different does not mean wrong. Human medicine looked primitive to us because we judged it by our own standards. But it was designed for different conditions and different needs." She picked up a human surgical saw that had once terrified her. This tool can cut through the densest bone or the toughest cartilage. Our energy cutters are more precise, but they fail when they meet materials that are too strong or when power systems are unreliable. This saw will work every time, in any conditions. A new student, a crystalline being from the Outer Rim colonies, raised a delicate appendage. But doesn't using such forceful tools cause more pain for the patients? Kira's body shifted to teaching colors as she considered the question. That is what I thought at first. But I learned that sometimes quick, decisive action causes less pain than slow, gentle methods that don't fully solve the problem. She gestured toward the recovered patients from the gravity crisis. During the emergency, we had beings who were suffering for hours while our gentle tools failed to help them. The human tools fixed them quickly and completely. The brief discomfort of strong treatment was much better than prolonged agony from failed gentle treatment. Tom nodded approvingly. We have a saying on Earth, sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. It means that doing something that seems harsh in the moment can be the most caring thing to do overall. The lesson continued as Kira demonstrated advanced techniques that combined alien precision with human reliability. She showed how to use human bone cement with alien bioscanners to create repairs that were both strong and perfectly aligned. She taught them to use human sutures with alien antiseptics to prevent infections in species that were vulnerable to different bacteria than humans. As the class ended, Dr. Vale announced that Harmony Station would be implementing a new standard medical protocol. All treatment areas would now stock both traditional alien equipment and human mechanical tools. All medical staff would be required to learn basic human techniques for emergency situations. We are also establishing an exchange program, Vale continued. Medical staff from other stations and planets will come here to learn human methods, and our staff will travel to spread this knowledge throughout the galaxy. This news excited everyone. The combination of alien precision and human reliability was proving to be more effective than either approach alone. Other medical facilities were already requesting training in the integrated techniques that Harmony had developed. Later, as the medical bay returned to its normal routine, Kira found herself working alongside Tom on a complex case. A mining accident similar to Tom's original injury had brought in a mixed crew of humans and aliens, all with severe trauma injuries. Working together, they treated patients from 6 different species using tools from both human and alien medical traditions. Tom's steady hands guided the heavy human instruments while Kira's crystal sensitivity monitored each patient's pain levels and healing progress. They moved with practiced coordination, each knowing exactly when to use precise alien tools and when to switch to robust human methods. We make a good team, Tom said as they finished treating the last patient. Kira's crystal body glowed with warm satisfaction. Yes, we do. I used to think that good medicine had to be gentle and precise. Now I know that good medicine is whatever works best for each patient. She looked around the medical bay, where alien and human staff worked side by side using integrated techniques that none of them had known just weeks before. The large human tools no longer looked monstrous to her, they looked like exactly what they were, perfectly designed instruments for helping beings heal and survive. You know what I think? Kira said to Tom as they cleaned their equipment together. What's that? I think the galaxy is full of beings who have learned to solve problems in different ways. We just needed to be willing to learn from each other. Tom smiled and carefully packed his medical tools back into their case. That might be the most human thing anyone has ever said to me. Kira's crystal body sparkled with laughter. Then maybe I am learning to think like a human sometimes. And maybe I'm learning to see like an alien, Tom replied. Either way, our patients are getting the best care possible. As they finished their work, both of them knew that something important had changed on Harmony Station. The fear of differences had been replaced by appreciation for diversity. The assumption that one way was always best had given way to understanding that different approaches could work together. The monstrous tools that had once frightened a gentle alien nurse had become instruments of healing that saved lives across the galaxy. And in learning to use them, she had discovered that strength and gentleness could coexist in ways she had never imagined possible.